Welcome, everyone. I hope you're doing well and feeling curious today. Let me ask you a question. Have you ever wondered how money was born? Or why today the dollar is the #1 currency in the world? In this video, we are going to explore a real powerful story from the very beginning of human history. This is not fiction. This is the story of how human beings moved from bartering goats and grains to using paper money, gold, and finally, the powerful dollar. We'll explain everything step by step, so make sure you subscribe, stay with me, and enjoy this amazing journey. Let's go back in time, thousands of years ago. There was no money, no coins, no notes, no banks, no credit cards. So, how did people buy or sell things? They didn't. They exchanged. This system was called the barter system. Let me explain. Imagine two people. One has rice, the other has milk. The rice owner says, "I will give you 5 kilos of rice. You give me 2 liters of milk." The milkman agrees. They shake hands. Deal done. That's barter. Trading goods for goods or goods for services without using money. This system worked, but only for a while. At first, it was okay because life was simple. But soon, people faced big problems. Double coincidence of wants. This is a big phrase, but simple meaning. Both people had to want something from each other at the same time. If I have apples and you have shoes, what if you don't want apples, and I really need shoes? No trade, no standard value. How many bananas are equal to 1 chicken? How much milk is equal to 1 shirt? Everyone had different opinions, no fixed value. Confusion, arguments, fights. Difficult to save wealth. If you had 50 kilograms of wheat, how would you save it? It can rot. Rats can eat it. You can't carry it everywhere. Not suitable for big civilizations. As society grew bigger, cities, kings, temples, farmers, builders, barter became too difficult. People needed a better system. So humans started thinking, we need something that everyone accepts. Something that has value, is easy to carry, and people can use any time. That's when the idea of money was born. Before coins, people started using items that everyone liked and accepted. In Africa and China, they used cowrie shells. In parts of Europe, people used salt, yes, real salt, as money. In India, people used wheat grains, spices, and later silver. Why were these used? Because they were rare, not easily available. They were easy to carry. People agreed on their value. But slowly, people found something better than cowries and salt. They found metals, especially gold, silver, copper. Why metals? They are strong. Don't rot like food. They shine. People liked shiny things. You can melt them, shape them, and even wear them as jewelry. Most importantly, you can divide them and weigh them. And this led to a big change. The first coins were made around 600 BC in a place called Lydia, which is in present-day Turkey. The king there, King Alyattes, made coins from a natural metal called electrum, a mix of gold and silver. These coins had a stamp, a royal mark. It showed the coin was real. The coin had a fixed value. It came from a trusted source. And just like that, the world started to change. People loved coins. They were easy to carry, easy to count, hard to fake, and everyone trusted the government or king who made them. Soon, India, China, Greece, Rome all started making their own coins. In India, coins were made from silver and copper with marks of kings and kingdoms. In Rome, soldiers were paid with coins. The word salary comes from salarium, which was salt money for Roman soldiers. As empires grew, so did their money. The Roman Empire the Maurya Empire in India, the Chinese Han Dynasty. They all used coins. Coins traveled through trade routes like the Silk Road. Merchants from India took silver coins to China. Arab traders brought gold coins to Africa. Coins became the first global money, and this system lasted for centuries. But even coins had problems. You need metal to make them. Gold and silver are not cheap. Kings sometimes cheated, used less gold and more cheap metal. Carrying big bags of coins was heavy and risky. Imagine being a merchant carrying 10 kilograms of gold coins from India to China. You could be robbed. The coins were heavy. Counting them took time. It was dangerous and slow. So people began to look for a better idea. Let's travel now to China, around the Tang Dynasty, 7th century. China had a huge empire. People were trading tea, silk, spices, and porcelain. The economy was growing fast. To solve the coin problem, Chinese traders and local governments tried something new. They created promissory notes, simple pieces of paper with a promise written on them. The paper said, "This note is worth 10 coins. You can collect your coins later from the official treasury." This was the beginning of paper money. By the Song Dynasty, around the 11th century, the Chinese government made it official. They started printing jiaozi, the world's first government-issued paper money. It was light, easy to carry, and safer than coins. But people asked, "How can I trust this paper?" So the government did 3 smart things. 1. Back the notes with real metal. They promised, "You can exchange this paper for silver or gold." 2. Used seals and stamps to prevent fake notes. 3. Punished counterfeiters. Faking money was a serious crime. This system worked. Trade became faster. China grew richer. But the idea took time to reach the rest of the world. Many years later, in the 1200s, a young man from Europe named Marco Polo visited China. He saw paper money being used in everyday life and was shocked. When he returned to Europe, he told everyone, "In China, they use paper instead of gold." People laughed. They didn't believe him. But slowly, Europe began to change. By the 1600s, goldsmiths in London started a clever system. People deposited gold with goldsmiths for safekeeping. The goldsmith gave them a receipt or note saying, "You have 10 gold coins with me." People soon realized these notes could be used to buy things. Instead of giving gold, they just gave the paper receipt. That paper became money. Later, banks copied the system. This is how banknotes were born. By the 1800s, countries started using paper money officially. But again, people had one question. How do I know this paper has value? So governments used a system called the gold standard. It means every paper note was backed by a fixed amount of gold. If you had $100, you could go to the bank and get the exact amount of gold for it. This built trust. In the US, $1 was backed by 23.22 grains of gold, around 1.5 grams. This system made trading between countries easier. The UK, France, Germany, and the US were all using it. Money had real value, and currencies were stable. But then came a big storm. World War I. During World War I, 1914 to 1918, countries spent a huge amount of money on weapons, soldiers, and supplies. To keep up, they printed more money, but didn't have enough gold to back it. Result? The gold standard broke down. Inflation rose. People lost trust in paper money. In some places, bread cost 100 times more in a few months. After the war, Countries tried to return to the gold standard, but failed again during the Great Depression, 1930s. Then came World War II, 1939 to 1945. Even more destruction. But one country became stronger than ever before: the United States of America. Here's why. The U.S. had huge gold reserves, especially in Fort Knox. It had less destruction because the war didn't happen on U.S. land. It produced a lot of goods, weapons, and supplies for other countries. So, after World War II, the world was in crisis, but the U.S. was in power. And that's when the dollar's journey to the top began. In 1944, while World War II was still going on, 44 countries gathered in a small town called Bretton Woods in the USA. They asked a big question: how do we rebuild the global economy? The answer: let's create a new system and make the US dollar the center of that system. Why? Because the US had the largest gold reserves. Its economy was the strongest and most stable. So, they agreed. The US dollar would be backed by gold. Other countries would fix their currencies to the dollar. $35 equals 1 ounce of gold. If you had foreign currency, you could convert it into dollars and then into gold. This was called the Bretton Woods system. It made the US dollar the world's main reserve currency. Countries started keeping dollars in their central banks. World trade began happening in dollars. Oil, gold, wheat. All were priced in USD. The dollar had officially become the king of world currencies. But the story doesn't end there. In the 1960s and 70s, the US government spent heavily, especially during the Vietnam War and on social programs. They printed more dollars, but didn't increase their gold reserves. Other countries noticed and started asking for gold in exchange for dollars. The US couldn't keep up. So in 1971, President Richard Nixon did something shocking. He ended the gold convertibility. This is called the Nixon shock. Now dollars were no longer backed by gold. They were backed by trust in the US government. The world entered a new system: fiat money. Fiat means by order. Now money had value because the government said so, not because of gold. Even after losing gold backing, the dollar stayed on top. Here's why. Trust in the US economy. The US has strong institutions, rule of law, and innovation. World trade uses dollars. Oil, technology, and goods are priced in USD, US Treasury bonds. Other countries invest in US debt. It's considered safe. Military power and global influence. The US has military bases across the world. No better option. The euro, yen, and yuan are strong, but none have global trust like the dollar. The US dollar had become the center of the global economy, but the world was changing. Technology was growing faster than ever. In the past, people used shells, coins, then paper. But in the late 1990s and early 2000s, the world entered a new era: digital banking. Here's how it started. People opened bank accounts. Money became numbers on a screen. You could send and receive money without touching cash. Let's say you live in Germany, and you send 100 euros to your friend in Canada using Wise, PayPal, or your banking app. No paper money, no coins, just numbers moving on a screen. In seconds, the money reaches your friend's Canadian bank account in Canadian dollars CAD. Then came debit and credit cards, used in shops, online stores, restaurants worldwide. Online banking. Check your balance, send money, pay bills from your phone. Mobile wallets like Apple Pay, Google Pay, Samsung Pay, tap and pay instantly. Now money was just data, moving through banks, apps, and servers. But this gave governments and banks huge control. And while that was happening, something revolutionary was born. In 2008, during a global financial crisis, people lost trust in banks. Big banks collapsed. People's savings were frozen. The US printed billions of dollars to save companies. This made people angry. One person or group using the name Satoshi Nakamoto created a solution. Bitcoin. What is Bitcoin? A digital currency with no central authority, no bank, no government. Limited supply. Only 21 million Bitcoins will ever exist. Completely decentralized. It's like digital gold. You can store it, send it, and no one can control it. Bitcoin gave birth to blockchain technology, a system where all transactions are recorded publicly and nobody can cheat. Later came Ethereum, with smart contracts, Tether, XRP, Solana, and thousands more. People believed this is the future, no inflation, no printing, full freedom. But governments saw a problem. They couldn't control crypto. It could be used for crime or money laundering. People could escape taxes and rules. So many countries banned or restricted crypto. But the idea was already out, and the world had tasted financial freedom. Now let's understand something powerful and scary. The US doesn't just use the dollar for trade, it uses the dollar as a weapon. Let's explain. The US has something called SWIFT, a global messaging system used by all banks to send money internationally. If a country is removed from SWIFT, it can't send or receive dollars easily. That country is financially isolated. Example 1. Iran. When the US didn't like Iran's nuclear program, it put sanctions. Iran was removed from SWIFT. Its banks were cut off. It couldn't sell oil in dollars. Its economy collapsed. Example 2. Russia. In 2022, after Russia attacked Ukraine, the US removed Russian banks from SWIFT. The ruble crashed. Western companies left. Russia had to trade in other currencies like yuan. This is called dollar weaponization. If you make the US angry, they can freeze your money, block your trade, and punish your people without firing a bullet. This made many countries worried. They started asking, why should we depend on the dollar? Many countries began planning a future without the dollar. This process is called de-dollarization. Let's look at some real examples. China and Russia. They now trade in Chinese yuan and Russian ruble. They're reducing dollar usage in oil, gas, and arms. BRICS nations: Brazil, Russia, India, China, South Africa. They're creating a new currency for international trade. Their goal: to reduce dollar dependence. In 2023, they invited more countries like Iran, Egypt, and UAE to join. Saudi Arabia. For 50 years, Saudi Arabia sold oil only in dollars. This was called the petrodollar system. But now, they're accepting Chinese yuan and Indian rupees for oil. India. India is promoting rupee trade with countries like Russia, Bangladesh, and Sri Lanka. It signed rupee dirham trade with the UAE. Central bank digital currencies, CBDCs. Many governments are launching digital versions of their currencies. Example: e-yuan in China, e-naira in Nigeria, and digital rupee in India. These can reduce dollar usage in cross-border payments. Even the IMF, International Monetary Fund, said dollar dominance is shrinking slowly. Even after all this, the dollar is still the most powerful currency. Why? Trust. People still believe the US will protect their money. US bonds. Investors buy US government debt because it's safe and stable. Dollar habit. Most contracts, loans, and trade are still in dollars. Lack of alternatives. Yuan is controlled. Euro has political issues. Crypto is unstable. Even countries that hate the US, like Iran or Venezuela, still use the dollar secretly for international trade. Right now, the world is in a quiet but intense financial war. Not with guns, but with currencies. On one side, US and Western countries. Controlling the dollar, SWIFT, World Bank, IMF. On the other side, BRICS nations, creating new systems, alternative payment platforms, new currencies, gold-backed assets. In the middle, crypto believers, fighting for a system without banks or governments. What will win? Nobody knows. But one thing is clear. The future of money is changing fast. Now let's ask something deeper. How does this affect you? How does this affect the life of a student in Kenya, a shop owner in Brazil, a nurse in Germany, or a factory worker in Bangladesh? Because here's the truth. The value of the US dollar can decide what you eat, what you wear, what you pay for fuel, and even how many people lose their jobs. Let's break it down clearly. When the US dollar becomes stronger in value, it sounds like a good thing, right? But not for everyone. Let's understand how it works. A stronger dollar means that other currencies become weaker compared to the dollar. For example, if the dollar becomes stronger, $1 might equal more pesos, naira, rupees, lira, or yen. This means importing goods becomes more expensive for other countries. Imagine this. You live in a country that imports fuel, medicines, or food in dollars. Now, if your currency weakens against the dollar, fuel becomes expensive. Food becomes costly. Phones, laptops, or even clothes imported from abroad cost more. You feel the change in your daily expenses. You may ask, why don't we just print more local money? Because then you'll face inflation, and the value of your money will fall even more. So when the dollar rises, people around the world suffer silently. This happens every year, but many don't realize why their cost of living is rising. It's often because of the dollar. Interest rates in the US control the global economy. Most people don't even know what interest rate means. Let me explain in simple words. When people or businesses borrow money, they pay extra money called interest. That percentage is called the interest rate. Now, the US has a central bank called the Federal Reserve, or Fed. Whenever inflation is rising in the US, the Fed increases interest rates. But here's the catch. When interest rates rise in the US, investors around the world pull their money out of other countries and put it into US banks, US bonds, and US markets. Why? Because they get more return in a safe country like the US. Now what happens? Countries like Egypt, Pakistan, Argentina, Turkey, Nigeria see capital flight, money leaving their economy. Their local currency weakens more. Their governments must pay more dollars to repay old loans. They face debt crises. Prices of goods go up. People lose jobs. So, one decision in the US to raise interest rates can shake the economy of a faraway country. Even if you've never touched a dollar in your life, your rent, fuel, job, and food prices are still controlled by it. Dollar debt, the hidden chain around poor countries. Now let's talk about debt. Many countries borrow money from the World Bank, IMF, or private investors. Most of this money is in dollars. Now here's the trap. A country borrows, say, $1 billion when $1 equals 10 local units. But 2 years later, $1 equals 20 local units. Now the country must pay back twice the amount in its own currency. This is called the dollar debt trap. That's why you see news like Sri Lanka can't pay its debt. Ghana defaulted on loan payments. Pakistan is negotiating another IMF deal. It's not always because they wasted money. Often it's because the dollar value rose and they couldn't handle it. As a result, the country cuts government jobs, reduces pensions and benefits, raises taxes, sells off national companies to foreign buyers, and the common people suffer the most. All because of a currency they don't even use daily. The price of oil, gold, and food all move with the dollar. Have you ever wondered why? Petrol prices keep changing? Gold prices rise in crisis? Food gets expensive when war breaks out? It's connected to the dollar. Let's break it down. Oil is traded globally in dollars. So if your local currency weakens, you pay more for oil. Higher oil price means higher transport cost, which increases the price of everything: milk, vegetables, clothes, deliveries. Same with gold. Gold becomes expensive when the dollar is weak. People buy gold to protect their savings. But in countries where gold is part of culture, like in weddings, families suffer as they can't afford it anymore. Wheat, rice, corn. Basic food items are also traded in dollars. So when global food prices rise, poor countries feel it 10 times harder. A drought in the US, a war in Ukraine, or an interest rate hike in America can change your grocery bill in Uganda, Philippines, or Morocco. That's how connected we all are through this invisible dollar web. When the dollar rises and inflation hits, rich people move their money. They buy assets in other countries. They invest in gold, real estate, or US bonds. They open offshore accounts. But ordinary people? They keep money in local banks. Their salary stays the same, but prices rise. They can't escape inflation. So the rich stay richer and the poor get poorer. And this gap grows wider with every financial crisis. Imagine you run a small business. You import raw materials or machines. You sell clothes, electronics, furniture, or even run a bakery. Suddenly, the dollar rises. Now, your import cost goes up. You must raise prices. Customers stop buying. You earn less profit. Startups also suffer. Foreign investors pull out. You can't raise funds. You shut down your dream. And you didn't even do anything wrong. Just the movement of a foreign currency destroyed your business. Now think about students going abroad to study. Tuition is in dollars. Living cost is in dollars. When the dollar strengthens, everything becomes more expensive. Some students cancel plans, take extra loans, work longer hours to survive. Same with migrant workers who send money home. If the dollar weakens, their family receives less value. If it strengthens, their home country pays more for their travel, taxes, or fees. Even tourists. Your dream trip to Europe or the US can become 50% more expensive just because the exchange rate changed. The dollar quietly decides your life choices. Because of all this, many countries are now building foreign currency reserves, save in dollars, doing trade in local currencies, launching digital currencies controlled by central banks, setting up currency swap agreements, exchanging local money instead of using the dollar, creating regional payment systems. But this will take time. The dollar has a 75-year head start. It's in our banking systems, global contracts, shipping industries, and even apps. So, while the fight has begun, we are still far from seeing a truly multipolar currency world. And that's the most surprising part. Your rent, groceries, job, tuition, petrol, gold, milk, salary, business, all are secretly influenced by a currency you didn't choose. This is the silent power of the US dollar. And it's not about hating or loving the dollar. It's about understanding it. Because when you understand how money moves, you start making smarter decisions, saving in the right currency, investing wisely, protecting your income from inflation, asking better questions from your government, preparing your business for currency risk. Knowledge is your shield in a world where money is power. Now here's the real game changer. CBDCs are digital versions of national currencies, backed and regulated by central banks. Not crypto, not Bitcoin, not speculation. These are official, programmable money. As of now, more than 130 countries are researching or testing CBDCs. This could redefine money forever. How CBDCs change the game. Instant international payments. No more waiting 3 days to wire money. No SWIFT dependence. Nations can bypass the US banking system. Trackable and programmable money. Good for taxes, bad for anonymous wealth hoarding. Imagine a Nigerian student in Germany paying her university fees in digital naira in seconds. Or a business in Indonesia buying Brazilian soybeans instantly with their own currency without converting to dollars. While governments build CBDCs, the people have already started a revolution of their own. Powered by cryptocurrencies, decentralized finance, DeFi, and blockchain transparency. These systems don't rely on banks, they rely on code. Bitcoin is now legal tender in El Salvador. Ethereum powers an entire universe of decentralized apps, like smart contracts and NFTs. Stablecoins like USDC and USDT provide crypto-backed versions of fiat currencies for stability. But here's the twist. Most crypto is still priced in, you guessed it, dollars. So even in the decentralized world, the dollar still whispers in the background. The hidden weapon. Trust. Here's something often overlooked. Money is not just metal, paper, or code. It's trust. If people lose trust in a currency, no matter how well designed, it collapses. That's why hyperinflation happens. That's why black markets form. And that's why even now, countries in economic crisis still prefer holding US dollars under their mattresses. In Zimbabwe, even after introducing new local currencies, people still use US dollars for groceries and rent. So, the next global currency isn't just about technology or politics. It's about who the world believes in. The BRICS strategy, unity against dollar hegemony. BRICS, Brazil, Russia, India, China, South Africa, is no longer just an acronym. It's an economic alliance with a currency mission. They're exploring a shared BRICS currency backed by gold or rare earths, cross-border payment systems independent of SWIFT, alternative financial institutions like the New Development Bank. At the 2023 BRICS Summit, 40-plus countries expressed interest in joining the bloc. The goal? Trade without the dollar. What it means for you, yes, you. Let's make this personal. Whether you live in Paris, Mumbai, São Paulo, Lagos, Manila, or Toronto, these changes will touch your life. Jobs. If you work remotely, you may be paid in digital dollars, crypto, or even your country's CBDC. Travel. Airport exchanges may vanish. Digital wallets could instantly convert one currency to another, with fair rates. Business. Global freelancers will negotiate contracts in whatever currency offers the best value that day. Inflation and savings. Traditional savings accounts may not be enough. You might start holding multi-currency digital portfolios to protect your wealth. So, what's the future currency of the world? It may not be one single currency. Instead, we're moving toward a multi-currency, multi-system world where power is shared, technology is king, and trust is everything. Think of it like this. The US dollar will still be powerful, but not alone. Digital currencies will be everywhere, fast, smart, and borderless. Cryptocurrencies will thrive where trust in government is low. New alliances will create their own systems and rules. The world is not waiting anymore. From African fintech to Southeast Asian startups, from Latin American crypto wallets to European green finance, the global South and East are writing their own financial story. The dollar may have written the last chapter, but the future will be co-authored. And in this new chapter, currency won't just represent value. It will represent identity, innovation, and independence. Learn about your country's digital currency plans. Explore new technologies like blockchain and smart contracts. Diversify your assets beyond borders. Stay curious, because the next big opportunity might not come in dollars, but in the language of the future. This was never just a story about money. This was a story about power, people, and possibility. And now, you're not just a listener, you're a part of it. History is being written in real time. Currency is evolving as you read this. And your understanding? That's your first form of wealth. Use it wisely, share it boldly, and never stop asking, what comes next?